Okay, as promised, we'll take a look at Lost in Space, one episode at a time. Episode 1 up next. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and at the end of last season, we know that the Jupiter 2 had gotten off the planet and was headed back to the Resolute to go back with the other colonists to head back toward Alpha Centauri. However, the ship is attacked by a killer robot, and their own robot comes in to fight it, and it falls out of an airlock. Then the Jupiter 2 is sucked through a black hole, and they think that they're all alone. What happens, though, is the Resolute follows them, and that's where they leave the end of last season. So what we have now is 7 months later, the Jupiter 2 is on a planet that has a methane atmosphere. They are very low on power. They're using lanterns and using ship's power as little as possible. They have extensive solar chargers out trying to get enough energy to put the ship back together, but as far as they know, they have no way of getting the ship off the ground and back in orbit. Now, Maureen comes up with an idea of seeing constant lightning flashes just in the horizon and thinking if they can get over there that it would be possible to harvest some of that energy and use it to recharge the ship's batteries. And John vetoes it, saying that it's too dangerous, we're putting our children at risk. Maureen counters with saying, well, they're never going to have a life here if we have to generate our own oxygen. We're hardly able to leave the ship, and certainly nobody's going to meet any friends. During this time, they have a greenhouse that has been placed just outside of the ship, and it is airtight so that it can hold in an oxygen atmosphere in which to grow crops. Corn, not potatoes, I guess. They did not want to be compared with the Martian and did not grow potatoes, but rather grew corn. There became winds that would tear holes into this greenhouse fabric that they had and cause, obviously, the toxic atmosphere to come in and the good atmosphere to go out, and so they were all the time patching it. Now, in the meantime, Dr. Smith has been under kind of house arrest and confined to quarters and locked in and only let out when handcuffed by Penny, who takes her out for a walk every day or, takes her to the bathroom whenever need be. And we would not think that there was any way that she could have gotten out of this, but of course she did. And we find out later in the episode that she is the cause of the tears in the fabric. And the idea is that she knows what Maureen's idea is, or at least she has a similar one, of saying that they should get off the planet any way they can, no matter who it hurts. Meantime, there is a Christmas celebration there. They are able to use some of the raw materials of the planet to construct a Christmas tree, and they present gifts to each other. Once again, you use this. If you're going to shoot a gun in the last act, you need to introduce it in the first act. The gift for Will is key to the chariot, so they're going to teach him how to drive. In the meantime, Will has, for everyone else, had a book printed of Penny's memoirs and presents it to everybody on the crew in order to point out just how good a writer she is and some nice thing to do in leisure time is to see what her point of view was in all of this. And once again, another thing introduced in the first act that'll be used later on in the episode. So we have finally a break that cannot be fixed in time, and all of the crops die, and we're forced to go in with Maureen's crazy plan, as John put it. And what that plan was, they reveal, was to rig the Jupiter 2 as a sailboat by using the infrastructure and the plastic that was used in the greenhouse. They're now making sails for the ship and actually sailing the ship across the ocean, which they're right on the beach, so that wasn't a problem getting it in there. And they're going toward where the lightning strikes are, hoping that when it hits a kite, that it will charge up the ship's batteries. So they head their way out. Dr. Smith volunteers her services, saying she knows how to sail. And they say, we don't need you because John is also an experienced sailor, and he's telling everybody how to do it. And they seem to be doing pretty well until they get to the edge of a waterfall. And that's where they leave us at the end of this episode. Now, this is something that reminds me of the Lost in Space TV series, in which they would go through a complete episode and there would be something to be accomplished in one episode, but then they would start a scene at the end to basically tease the next show. But instead of just saying, here's what's coming up next week, they would just start the next story and then leave on a cliffhanger. And in this case, they're literally hanging on a cliff, a waterfall cliff, and an unseen bottom, which they said is metallic, which means that if you jumped into it, you're not likely to just go splash. So they are concerned about the hull of the ship after the trip, and there is that. We see in this episode also an improvement, I think, in the family dynamic. The acrimony between Maureen and John is notched back quite a bit, where she still wants to boss everybody around, and that becomes kind of an issue, especially with Penny. But John has now become kind of the moral center of the family. It's revealed that Don West is a smuggler, at least to Dr. Smith, and while it's not known by the Robinson family, she's using that in order to make sure that he will be an ally later. She is concerned upon getting back to the Resolute that she's going to be turned into the authorities and therefore jailed and not sent to Alpha Centauri. And that, of course, is not what she wants. There's some flashbacks there of her childhood, of where she does evil things there, and that's all well and good. So you know what's going to happen here is that they're going to have to call on Smith to help them for some reason or other. They're going to have to rely on her for something that will keep them from wanting to just kill her. So we'll find out in the second episode exactly how they do that. As they're headed for danger, I believe it's Will that says to John, "You're making a worried face." And John says, "It's just my normal face now." I thought that was a good line. So if you've seen episode 1 of Lost in Space, let me know what you think about it. If there's any detail that you saw that might be interesting that we missed here, we probably missed a dozen of them, we'd be interested in hearing from you in the comments. We'll have 2 or 3 of these Lost in Space episodes videoed for you, and then we'll go back and talk about Doctor Who on the episodes coming out on Sunday. So until then, don't go far.